Welcome to another podcast episode. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with the one and only Derek Fox. He is the brilliant mind behind his newly founded company, Midsail Research. With extensive experience at Polo Ralph Lauren and startups, Derek founded Midsail to transform market intelligence for small to mid-sized businesses. He's providing businesses with research on par with Fortune 500 companies, empowering them to make informed decisions. Today, we're going to be diving into Derek's journey and exploring qualitative and quantitative data and discover how companies can enhance marketing campaigns through customer and competitive research. Hope you guys brought your notebooks. This one's going to be a good one. Enjoy.
Yeah, as you know, my name is Derek. I am the founder of a company called Midsail Research. What we do is we deliver market research, competitor intelligence, and customer intelligence reports to businesses, C-level suites, marketing professionals, business development professionals, and sales professionals, and give them pretty much all the data information they need to make informed business decisions so they don't have to go through these typical trial and error processes that they typically do. Before I founded this company, I worked for Polo Ralph Lauren for about 7 years on the business development team, pretty much overseeing most of the men's luxury brands on the East Coast. Saw some phenomenal growth in that company and that brand, but decided to make the switch over to the startup world. From there, I've worked for three different international startups. Two of which I was the head of sales and marketing for, building out fantastic books of businesses, growing businesses into the tens of millions, from 10 customers over to 250. And the third one, working on the go-to-market team. Those different startups really were in all different various industries, anywhere from design to fashion technology to artificial intelligence and robotics. But it really helped lead me to founding Midsail Research because, to answer your question, I saw a big gap in the markets for market research. I think a lot of the big companies in the world deploy market research, and they heavily rely on it, and they owe a lot of their success to it. But unfortunately, it just hasn't been accessible to let's say small, medium-sized businesses and the mid-tier businesses, because these large companies, they pay, $200,000, $300,000 for market research reports, and most businesses don't want to or don't see it realistically to invest in that. So we deliver market research at much more affordable prices, and really to make it attainable to mid-sized businesses, so they can really reap all those information to really help make them informed decisions. So that's a
Yeah.
little bit what was the thought process on starting the company.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. Yeah, and you said that there was a big gap in the market, and it included the budgets, like basically smaller businesses compared to these Fortune 500 companies. They don't have obviously resources in order to gather all of that valuable information. Was there besides the budgets, like was there anything else that you've seen in, I would say, small and medium sized businesses that was um I would say, like, why they're not doing research and why they skip over that part?
Mhm. So I think, if we're honest with ourselves, I think most brands think they do market research, because they know they need to do it. And, it's a shame because what their version of market research is, let's build out a year-long strategy, sales strategy, market strategy, marketing strategy, business development strategy. But let's spend 3 days doing market research, and then the next month and a half building out the strategy to deploy it. And they really kind of do this as just kind of check it off the box. And they don't really deploy really meaningful market research. And what I mean by that is, they might look at a little bit of how the market's reacting, how past performance of the market, trend analysis, but they don't dive deep into what are their competitors doing, what are
Mhm,
the digital strategies that their competitors doing, what are the gaps in products and services
mhm,
from their competitors. And if they do, they only look at first tier competitors, right? We like to break up competitors into three tiers, first tier, second tier, and third tier.
mhm,
First tier, most businesses know what those competitors are, because those are the competitors that you're competing with specifically on price, on product, et cetera. But then there's a lot of second and third tier competitors that the buyer is deciding between to spend their money. It might not be the exact same product, but they're only going to spend their money on one versus the other. And that's really
Mhm.
where we've been excelling on delivering these reports. And then it's also really about understanding the customers. They don't, a lot of companies don't, they like to say that, we're customer focused, um, but they don't engage with their customer base enough through
Mm.
interviews, through product enhancements, through what's going wrong, what's going right. So there's a real big gap in the market from either the investment standpoint, or if they are investing on it, just doing it properly and doing it, the right way to gather all that information and that data.
Mhm. Do you walk into companies and you see like a full on they have this built out like fully complete like marketing plan and the thing that's missing is the marketing research?
So I mean, that's what happens. They'll come up and they'll have these, fantastic, beautifully laid out marketing plans, for the next, 3 months up till the next year. And I look at them and say, what drove to a lot of these decisions. And we did market research, and they'll spend 2 3 days on market research. They usually deploy that to a junior level person to do that, and then they make all these decisions, and they have this mindset of trial and error, trial and error. Let's keep on testing, let's keep on testing, let's keep on testing and adjusting, right? But so much time is wasted on not understanding, firstly, where the areas of opportunity are through
Mm.
research, through qualitative research by means of interviewing people, focus groups. You could spend, a month doing a project, and it could help speed up your business by a full year. Just by taking the time to really understand, taking the pulse of your customers, competitors in the market.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Do you that's so crazy because like I was one of those individuals that I always thought it was just like it was guessing and it's just a guessing game and you're just basically going to learn from your customers the more and more so from a marketing perspective the more content you put out the more emails you send whatever it may have you they're going to teach you on how to better those emails how to produce better content or whatever it may have you and so but it's crazy because I didn't even think about the research part, and I didn't even think like, I thought that was the research, the trial and error.
Mhm.
Yeah, and, yeah, that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah,
If if
it can really change businesses. I mean, we were working with this company recently, and they had sunflower oil. Sunflower oil is typically thought of as a cooking oil, right? You cook with it. It's not really a competitor to olive oil, but it's a competitor to other vegetable oils out there, palm oil, other seed oils, coconut oils, et cetera, et cetera. So their thought process, and they built this entirely beautiful, go to market and business strategy around retail sales of sunflower oil, and then also trying to get into some manufacturers. So they hired us to do some research, right? And to really understand, the core customers, the competitors, the space, areas of opportunity, all this, and really interview kind of the key opinion leaders in the market. And the findings were quite shocking. The findings were, the retail space was very expensive, was very competitive. To get shelf life was very difficult and very expensive. It's something that they could have did, but it would cost a lot of money. The manufacturers, on the other hand, was the route that they thought they wanted to go into, but the challenges there were supply and demand. You sell to big chip manufacturers; they want to make sure that you're never going to run out of oil. So what we did through this research, we found this whole new area of opportunity, which was actually the cosmetics industry. Um, and we really revolutionized and changed their entire business. And now they're selling sunflower oil to cosmetic beauty supply brands, because they're huge buyers for shampoos, for body washes, for soaps, for makeups, mascaras. And this is something that was not even on their radar at all. And it
yeah.
changed their entire business.
Yeah, that's I could imagine, man. That's it reminds me of that book, Blue Ocean Strategy. Forgive me, I forgot the author. But it's basically finding the blue ocean because it's so competitive where you're at and maybe saturated where you're at in the niche that you're aiming for. And then it's just, widening your vision a little bit just to look at all the other different customers and how they're using your product, maybe as like a substitute product or like their actual product to solve whatever problem that they're dealing with. That's
Mhm.
crazy. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Dude, I seen on your Instagram not too long ago, you posted about the kids on the slide, like, in the playground. And it's like a prime example of like lack of research. So where it's like for anybody that's that watches this, go on his LinkedIn and go into his post. You're gonna see something that he reposted. And it was all the kids weren't even using the slide on the playground. They were using the actual slope on the it was like the ground.
Yep,
And all of
exactly.
them, yeah, all of them were having a blast. And so, yeah, and so that I'm pretty sure that construction company that developed that, they could have been like, man, we could have just made like a slope without the playground.
Was
So it,
so much
it,
better.
yeah, yeah, so much better. And so, Derek, take me like step by step for a company that let's say a company does have their whole marketing plan built out and they're ready to go. They maybe got a little bit of market research just from past like historical data that they have with their consumers and maybe just talking to other to maybe talking to their consumers and then talking to other companies. um, Walk me step by step on how you would go in there and basically consult them. Like, what's step one in making sure that you have really good, solid research to find those opportunities?
Yeah. So first, it really depends on the industry that they're in. And first, it depends on what industry you're in and setting up a cadence and coming to an agreement that market research is not a one-time exercise. It's not
Mhm,
done today to inform your strategy for the next year and then never done again. Right. I walk into companies, they're like, where do we start with market research? We did market research 5 years ago. And I'm like, well, 5 years ago, that was before COVID. Like the industry, the markets, consumer behavior, everything has changed and it keeps on changing, right? So first, you need to set up a cadence with them. Every industry is different. So you'll have consumer goods and fashion industries. The cadence will be quite frequent. It could be quarterly. It could be twice a year because consumer preferences changes. If you're a B2B company, it could be once a year, once every 2 years, really, or depending also on the length of your business. But first of all, it's setting up a cadence, right? And then it's understanding and testing the market and understanding how to extract that data, right? So
mhm,
it's, we like to say, customers are kings, right? Like their insights are so valuable, right? But it's great to understand how to extract it, right? Um, and what I mean by that is, if you talk to a sales professional and from a tech company, and they could say, hey, listen, the customers out there are all saying we need X, Y, and Z. Um, upgrade in our service, right? And then you dig a little bit deeper, and you're like, well, how many people are saying that? You're like, well, only two people said it, but it was the last two people I spoke to. But then if you dig a little bit deeper, you're like, wait, you spoke to 50 people this week. You spoke to 100 people this month, and only two people actually requested that. So do we really want to act on that? So first, it's really just consulting them and teaching them. Okay, listen, let's set up a cadence on how to do research. This is how you do research. Some research, depending on your team, you can do in house. Some research you need to have a third party to do. And then this is how you extract all the findings to make them
mhm.
meaningful, right? Because you just don't want to be able to do this research and then be able to act on every impulse, right? Because that's not the purpose of this. And it's really be able to teach them how to extract the findings and then how to apply that to their business. So, like I say, like we don't do research for the sake of research, right? We're not an academic institution. We do it to have positive business outcomes. And it's
Yeah.
really teaching companies how to do that in a meaningful way.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Setting up the cadence and then extracting the right data.
Yep.
Um, Tell me if this is correct. And I'm sorry, this wasn't on the. I'm kind of put you on the spot, but this was in the notes that I sent to you. But tell me if I'm thinking about this correctly from a marketing perspective. When it comes to acquiring new clients, what I envision in my brain is that our marketing campaign should be parallel to how consumers consume and their process. Like I always go back to John Dewey's the 5 stages of consumer decision making and how they start off with a problem and they end up as like from post purchase evaluation. And so like my mind always thinks about marketing as like, all right, cool. Well, what we're trying to do is influence them on stages 1 through 3. So on the problem solving, I'm sorry, on the problem recognition stage, the information gathering stage, and then the evaluating all the alternative products out there to solve their problem stage. Our responsibility as marketers is to influence those three. And in order to do that, I have to have a complete understanding of how and why these buyers are going through those stages. Am I like thinking about that correctly?
Yeah, for sure. And the research really in that regard is it's to help inform you how the buyers are thinking and then
Mhm.
how to target them, and then how to give them meaningful messaging, right? If
Mhm.
you speak to 100 people and they 90% of those people have a certain call out, or there's a common denominator in there, you could use that in your marketing equation to provide better results.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just a smaller sample size. But
Mhm.
it really is, it really works hand in hand with the marketing team. Market research is it's not just for the marketing team; it's for the sales org, it's also for the business development org, and it's also for the C-level suites really to help them make informed decisions all around.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the questions I was gonna ask is how do you make sure, because just like you said, each one of the departments have to be in sync with this, research that you've done, and the ongoing research that how, when buyers how you basically adapt to buyers buying. And so, like, how do you make sure, like, how do you take this from marketing, give it to sales, and then give it to, product management? I'm assuming that's the other.
So it goes to the product development, it goes to C-level suites, and also biz dev, business development as well.
Mhm, mhm.
But yeah, I mean that's a good point, right? So we produce, sometimes any of our reports can be anywhere from 50 pages to 150 pages,
Oh,
but
wow.
then we coach the teams on how to distribute those reports, right? Because if you're going to give a 100-page report to a C-level person, they're not going to look at this, right? So you need to break into. So that's where we also produce, kind of the high level reports for them too. This the really kind of just the high level information gathering reports, just so they could the executive summaries too. They escaped my mind for a second, just so they could really get all the information in a few minutes, right? But then we also teach them how to distribute this information. So like different departments will care about different things. So competitor intelligence is super important for marketing teams and also for the sales professionals, right? Working in tech, tech sales, knowing what your competitors are selling and where there's gaps is huge, right? You're selling a product to them. A lot of people are not always right in the mood to buy or ready to buy right away. So they want to do their own research. But being able to know, like, hey, listen, I know who you're going to research already. I know who our five top competitors are. I can tell you right now where the product gaps are, where we excel and where we don't excel versus them. Equipping a sales professional with that is super important, just like it is super important to equip a marketing professional with that kind of information. So once we deliver these reports, we really kind of start coaching the team or the buyer, whoever the partner was, how they could deliver that, and then how they could really leverage that throughout all the different org charts in their company.
Yeah, yeah, because then it becomes like, well, I can only speak from marketing because I don't know how sales does it or how product development does it, but then it becomes like implementing all of that insight now into the new marketing plan. And do you see, like, from like marketing perspective, do you see that they have to like redo the whole plan, or is it just like a couple tweaks here and there?
It's usually a couple of tweaks, right? So it depends really where the stages are, right? And really where we come into play, right? So if you're when I say mature company, I don't mean you've been around for 50 years, but I mean you're not new to market, right? And you've been selling for a few years and you have a loyal base and you have a built out marketing plan that you're looking just to get better results from the year prior. We come in and by no means is it revolutionizing and changing everything you do, right? It's making small adjustments here and there, right? To the target audience, to the markets, product enhancements, pricing strategy across all different departments. So really trying to get you to that next level. If you're a brand new go-to-market team, that could, like I said before, with the sunflower company, that can completely revolutionize your business. It really depends on what stage a company comes to us for the market research.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, super interesting, dude. Um, let's see. What have you seen? And I believe I've gone over this question, but what have you seen? Well, actually, let's do this. What resources are there, any resources out there that a company can go to right now? Like, they hear what you're saying on this video, and they're like, that makes sense. I need to go back, and we haven't done our research in 5 years. And is there anything besides getting in contact with you and bringing you on board? Is there anything that they can do to actually like start the process and of their getting some more insight from their clients and finding opportunities?
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, there's a ton of information out there. The first thing I use as a disclaimer is make sure whatever source you use for data or for information is a credible source, right? So, it's, with the world of AI right now, people want a shortcut. So they want to go on chat GPT and say, hey, spit out research for me on XYZ, right? But that's like saying, hey, I'm going to do a research project on and get all my information from Wikipedia, right? So some of that information might be correct, right? But is 100% of it going to be correct? You don't know, right? And
Mhm.
and when you're making business decisions and you're influencing buyers and there's money at stake, you can't use a chat GPT or a Wikipedia to make all those decisions. There are great starting points for some companies, but it's not the end all be all. So what I like to use is we break research up, and I think companies, if they want to do this on their own, you really need to break it up from quantitative and qualitative research.
Mhm.
Quantitative. Um, you really need to start gathering data and gathering information. So depending on what resources are, a lot of government data is very easily accessible. U.S. Census Bureau, depending on what industry, agricultural, they produce reports, but really go right to the source. There's also fantastic companies that are statistical houses like Statista that you can
Mhm.
get some really great data from, and really leveraging pre-populated market reports is a good jumping off point. Now, to get that qualitative information, you really need to start conducting interviews, um,
Mhm.
putting out polls, focus groups, surveys, etc. And that's difficult for a company to do on their own without bias. Because if you come, like, if I was still working for Ralph Lauren and my goal was to interview the market for 1,000 people, to understand, what's the, what product they like the best. There's a good chance that they're not gonna, as a representative of Ralph Lauren, they're not gonna give me 100% truthful answers, right? Because they know they don't want to hurt my feelings. They know that there's, I have loyalty to a certain company. So really, when you want that really unbiased qualitative research, you really need to kind of leverage a third party to really get
Mhm.
that. But most of all, it's understanding how to extract all this information, put it into qualitative, to meaningful insights, right? It's not just
Mhm.
interviewing 10 people, 6 people said the same thing. So you're like, okay, now I'm going to run with that. Like, you got to know how to extract it. And that's where companies like us and other companies come in, to either do the research or kind of just coach you on how to take it in house.
Mhm. Yeah. And then what's the difference? Like, what are you looking for in qualitative research compared to quantitative research?
So you want to do both, right? You don't want to do one or the other. You want to do both because you want to have a large data pool, right? So you want to know
Mhm.
a large data on what thousands and thousands of people think.
Mhm.
But then you want to then get, you know, below just the service level. And you really want to have
Mhm.
meaningful conversations with people, right? So at a high level, the quantitative, you want to have a poll of how 10,000 people across the US think about a certain product, certain industry, et cetera, right? And that's a great starting point. But then you want to interview maybe 100 people and then ask them, like, all right, so like we know that you answer these 5 questions, but tell us a little bit more. Let's dig a little bit deeper in the surface. So what would you do next? What influenced that decision? Right? And it's really both of those to really come up and really produce a really well articulated report. It's not
Yeah.
one or the other, really.
Yeah, yeah, it's both. Yeah, that's so crazy because I got so stuck in but I came from the real estate industry, and so like in the real estate industry, the National Association of Realtors, they put out their data every single year. It's called the
Hmm.
Profile of Home Buyers and Sellers, and it basically tells you how buyers and sellers are buying and selling properties. And so from choosing their agents to what the hassles that they're experiencing with most. And so I believe theirs is 2028. What's a like when you're reading research that another company has done, like how do you know that it's like really good research?
So, so first, it needs to be cited. Everything needs to be cited.
Mhm.
If you're reading some research and there's no sources on there, that's a bit of a flag,
Mhm.
because you don't know where they're getting this information from, and then you don't know where they're filling in the gaps. So first of all,
Mm.
citing and sources is are a great indicator of a good report. But you know, a lot of these reports that like the big companies produce, and this is where we differ, is they produce reports, and they're, don't get me wrong, they're beautiful reports, incredible insights, incredible knowledge, but they produce these 100-page reports, and companies don't know how to act on these findings, right? And that's where we
Mhm.
differ quite a bit because we don't look at this from, like I said, like an academic perspective. We look at this from business development and marketing professionals on all of our research findings needs to help guide you in your day-to-day work, right? So we're giving you active, advices and outcomes upon acting on our reporting. But everything we do is from credible sources, and we cite everything. So I think to answer your question, it's like if you have a 50-page report and there's no citing, and that's a bit of a flag.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Because the reason why I asked that is because I was thinking about because usually in research reports, the ones that I've come across, they tell you like their methodology on like how they came across that
Yep.
data. Yeah, and so for the NAR, they actually, I believe it's a survey that they send out to a certain amount of people. It's like thousands. I know it's thousands of people though, and so, but all of that. So that's quantitative. I mean, obviously, without you seeing the reports, uh, all of that is quantitative. And what I want to do is then mix that with now actually talking to my my customers, and asking them, like, all right, cool. Well, why was your first step in the home buying process going online? Like, what are you looking
Mhm.
for when you're going
Yep.
online? So it's the
Yep.
combination of those two that gives you really good
It's
insight.
a combination, and mind you, without me seeing the exact report you're referencing, it's a combination, right? Because like that report, like especially if you said it's distributed across the entire country, it's probably a great jumping off point. But then if you're a realtor in whatever city that you're selling, you might want to actually then test those findings to see if it's
Mhm,
applicable to your area, right?
mhm,
So you might want to then interview, I don't know, decide what the sample size is, 20, 30, 40 buyers, and say, hey, listen, like this is what the research is telling me from a quantitative level. Let's see if it's backed up by talking to people, and then you can maybe find out like, yeah, it's 100% true, or maybe there's a discrepancy, and that's where regional reporting comes in a little bit differently, right? Because just because someone's buying an apartment in New York a certain way versus someone in LA buying a house, that doesn't mean that they have the same buying path, right? And
mhm.
that's where really we have to get into that qualitative research to really kind of uncover kind of a little bit more of the meaty topics.
Yeah, it's like the qualitative confirms the quantitative.
Yep.
In a way. Yeah, 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 yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, because that's I've always looked at both of those the same, sorry. No, I've always looked at both of those as, like, complementary to each other. And so, quantitative is telling me the what and the how, and then the qualitative is telling me why they are taking these actions. And
Yep.
so,
At a high level. Yep.
yeah, 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 at a high level. But that's good though. That it's really good stuff though. Like making sure that you are getting regional, or even, for local businesses, local data, because you can't really just, look at what people are doing on a national level. And then, the buying process of someone down in, Alabama is probably different than somebody in LA, And
Yep.
so, and then the demographics of those two people, a busy businessman, compared to yeah, I don't know, whatever type of person in Alabama. Their research process is way different. Um,
Exactly, and that's why that's why qualitative findings. That's where you have to kind of be trained on it to some degree, right? Because if I was hired by a company and they're like, you need to interview 50 people, and then I went to, small town South Carolina and interviewed 50 people and said, "Hey, these are my findings." Like, no, that's not indicative of the country. I mean, if the small business was in that area, great. But if it's not, if it's more large scale, like that's not indicative, right? You need to have a proper sample size, right? So you need to actually interview people from all different races, from all different genders, from all different economic levels, to really
mhm.
get a full scope on what we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. How do you come up with a so are you the one that's responsible for, or do companies put this responsibility on you to come up with the target audiences and ICPs?
It depends how far along they are in the
Mm,
process. It
mm.
really depends.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, because like, what I was gonna ask is like how, like, what is your process and of course, like, it depends. There's so many different variables that go into this, but how do you like clearly define an ideal customer profile for a company? Like, what's your thought process in doing that?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on, where they're at in, as far as the company, right? Are they a startup? Are they a mature business? Is it a new to market product? But typically, we work with a lot of companies that are, earlier stage companies, or they're new to market products and they're really trying to test it out. And
Mhm.
what we do is we use the quantitative and qualitative research to test it out. We test out in focus groups and interviews, potential buyers, and then our competitors buyers, right? So that's really interesting. Like, what we do when we talk to our competitors customers, you get incredible insights, right? So if a company knows, like, hey, these are my top four competitors,
Interesting.
but then actually be able to spend, and talking to 10 of their customers, and you really start understanding what are the gaps, right? So you can start finding out that there's 80% of their customers love their product, and this is the 20% that why they don't love it, right? So this could help inform your strategy. It could help you journey to a path to have a similar ICP or creating an entirely new ICP. Um,
Mm.
but it's difficult necessarily to always talk into hypothetical questions because
Mhm.
these research projects they vary so often in
Yeah.
depending on the business,
Mhm.
depending on the industry they're in and the maturity of it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. How would you even go about, like I can see it in real estate. Like, I mean, I can go to the Coldwell Bankers, the Remaxes, the Century 21s, and like just basically like call real estate agents. But like for a product, like how would you go to your competitors' customers? Like, how do you even get access to that?
Yeah. You reach out to them, really. So since you're not a part of the company, you're not poaching on their customers. I'm not a part of any company. So you reach out to them, you ask them. Typically, we usually have about a 70% success rate. So we usually have to reach out to about 30% more people.
Mm,
And we typically set up either focus groups or interviews. We typically offer a slight small compensation to being a part of the focus group or the interview. And then
mhm,
we ask them questions, right? And then we try to keep it, kind of targeted, right? So we're not like there from, just asking about their competitor. So we ask them about, like, what led them to buying decisions, how do they think about the market in general. But then we dig deep into their buying decisions and how do they like the products. But it depends very much. Like if we're talking about B2B companies versus consumer goods, it's a bit different for sure. How you react to people. If we're working with a brand like Kleenex, for example, we could talk to almost anybody who knows about their products, right? Versus like a
yep,
B2B company like HubSpot, where we have to be very much more targeted in our approach.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. That's so interesting. Yeah, I was just thinking about that. I was like, damn, imagine like going to your competitor and you're like, hey, I'm from, ABC company, and I just wanted to ask you a couple questions real quick. And
Yeah,
so,
but you know what's a
yeah,
really
that's
good
awesome.
way if you have a direct to customer and your product, go on your competitors' websites or wherever they sell it, and look at all the negative reviews. That's just a great easy
Mm,
way to get some competitor intelligence without spending any money and spending too much time. Look at all the negative and positive reviews, and the negative reviews will really tell you how you can better your product.
mm.
And the positive reviews will show you what they're doing right and what they're doing not. But that's really, really quick way to get some intel.
How do you okay, so say somebody did that. How do you prioritize like what to like fix first? And so, I mean, I'm going now more on the product development side. But, like, say you had a whatever, and you were doing all that research, you found all that research, and now you're like, "Alright, cool, we found these 3 or 4 different things." Like, how do you prioritize fixing those? Is it one thing at a time, or is it you're just like, "Alright, cool, let's just put a whole team on every single project and fix everything at once?"
Yeah, so usually it doesn't. You have to prioritize. Usually teams can't, handle too much, and depending on how large scale the issue is. But usually it's priority. So usually when we do these kind of competitor analysis for and customer analysis for product teams, we usually have a scorecard that we do, and we say, hey, listen, there's a threshold. There needs to be a certain amount of call outs, and it can be either a number or a percentage before we want to act on something, right? So like 70% of the markets, if your customers or your prospects are asking for a certain feature enhancement, is a typically a good one. If we reach that threshold, we need to act on it, right? And
Mm,
then we understand how many we get, right? So after the research finding, let's say there's three notable things that we need to act on. We either then prioritize them through percentages on the customer and competitor intelligence on what they're saying in the market, or we do it through what will help us achieve our business goals first, right? So usually one is a glaring high priority because it usually leads to either lower cost of customer acquisition or higher revenue or faster growth. And we
Mhm.
really then prioritize in that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. Figuring out, yeah, that's I wouldn't even thought of like putting a threshold on the amount of feedback that you get to where it's like, all right, cool, out of these. And if I'm please correct me if I'm wrong. It's like if our just hypothetically, if we were, talking to 1,000 of our customers, and if we see that changing something on the website, again, a hypothetical, changing something on the website, if we see that more than 200 times, then let's make that a priority. And
Yep.
so, yeah,
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 you got to
yeah.
make a threshold because I've been a part of a lot of teams where they'll be like, "Let's talk to the sales team and see what the market wants," right? Because the sales team is usually on the front lines, right? They're talking to the customers, they're trying to persuade them and everything. And then you talk to the sales team and you try to like dig deep, like, "Oh, what's the market telling us? What are the customers saying? Like, what enhancements can we make? This and that." And they'll say, "Hey, you need to do X, Y, and Z." And then you dig a little bit deeper, and you're like, "Well, do we need to do that? How many people have called that out? Is it one person? Is it 10 people? How many
Mhm.
people have really called it out?" And sometimes you find out like it's only been two people that called that out. So do you really need to act on that in
Mhm.
general? Because sometimes the negative stuff um, is a little bit louder than the positive stuff. So you really need to understand how to extract that. That's why scorecards are great ways. And really saying, hey, listen, we need to hit a certain threshold before we act on anything.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. That's good stuff, Derek. Man, it seems like you really know what you're doing over there at Midsail. Do you have a team with you, or are you, like, yeah, do you have a team over at Midsail, or is
We
it
do, yeah, we do. We have a global team, mostly based here in the U.S., but we have a global team, um, and we deploy them for various different research topics, right? So if it's interviews, if we need to interview 500 people at any given time, we need to deploy our team to actually conduct the interviews, right? We also need to deploy them on some of the research findings and how to conduct it, admin, etc. But we do have a team here. A lot of them are, we built a team of contractors. So a lot of them are contractors, working on a per project basis. But we have a pretty large network right now.
nice? That's pretty good, man. Yeah, hopefully anybody that is watching this, you guys reach out to Midsail, reach out to Derek. You can find where can people find you, man?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Derek Fox. Company's called Midsail Research. You can email me at Derek at Midsail Research, or you can visit my website Midsail Research. You can reach us through the contact form on Midsail Research. Someone will get back to you.
Mhm.
We're here to help you on any of your research projects, or if you just need some advice on how or some tips on how to take some research in house and kind of conduct your own research, we're more than happy to help you in that regard as well.
Yeah, yeah. I would highly advise anybody, get in contact with Derek. It's because, dude, just, me reaching out to you, I don't know why, but like I put like when I see people on LinkedIn, sometimes it is like a little intimidating because you go into their history and you're like, oh man, Polo Ralph Lauren, oh man, like, they did this, they did that, they did this, and they're probably too busy to even respond. But for all the people listening and watching, like, dude, go onto his LinkedIn, hit him up if you guys have any questions. He posts really great content on his LinkedIn that it would be very beneficial to doing some market research for a company on any level. And so, reach out to him, send him what is it called, a DM? I think it's called DM on LinkedIn,
Sure. Yeah.
whatever it is. Send him a message, friend him, and like I said, like he's very easy to reach out to, and so. Derek, do you have anything else that you're working on right now? Like any other like personal projects, passion projects, anything like that?
No, everything right now, my whole bandwidth is really just focusing on mid-sell research. We're actually working and partnering with a lot of different marketing agencies around the country um, to deploy our research capabilities and white labeling those services through marketing agencies. So if you are a marketing agency and you're interested in white label research services, please reach out as we'll love to entertain that conversation.
Yeah, pretty cool, man. Well, Derek, I appreciate the time, man. I really do. This has been very helpful. I got